The Feynman Technique is a highly effective learning method developed by Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman. It focuses on deep understanding rather than memorization, making it ideal for students who want to learn faster and retain knowledge longer. The core idea is simple. If you can't explain a concept in plain, simple language, you probably don't understand it well enough. By teaching what you've learned as if you're explaining it to a child or someone with no background in the topic, you force yourself to process the information actively, not just passively absorb it. The technique follows 4 key steps. First, choose a topic you want to learn and write the name of it at the top of a blank page. Second, try to explain the concept in your own words, using simple language and examples. Imagine you're teaching it to someone else. This forces you to clarify your thinking and organize the information. If you get stuck or use complicated terms, that's a sign you need to go back and review the material. That's step 3. Identify the gaps in your understanding and study those specific parts again until you can explain them clearly. Finally, in step 4, rewrite or retell the concept in a refined, simplified, and logically structured form, ensuring that your explanation flows smoothly and naturally. This method is effective because it engages multiple parts of the brain: critical thinking, memory recall, language processing, and even creativity. It doesn't just help you remember facts, it helps you understand the deeper why and how behind them. Research has shown that students who regularly use active recall and self-explanation, core elements of the Feynman technique, perform better on tests and retain information longer than those who rely solely on reading or highlighting. In practice, the Feynman technique can be applied in many ways. You can use it to review after class by writing summaries in your own words, to prepare for exams by teaching topics aloud as if presenting them, or even during group study sessions by taking turns explaining topics to each other. It's also helpful for identifying overconfidence. Sometimes we think we understand something until we try to explain it and realize we don't. That moment of confusion is not failure, it's feedback, and it guides you to exactly where you need to focus. In summary, the Feynman technique transforms how you study by making learning active, structured, and deeply personal. It helps you internalize knowledge, spot weak areas, and build the confidence to explain what you know clearly and effectively. If you're looking for a method to study smarter, not harder, this technique is one of the best tools you can use.
1. Feynman Technique là gì? 2. 4 bước trong phương pháp Feynman. 3. Tại sao Feynman Technique lại hiệu quả? 4. Cách ứng dụng Feynman Technique vào học tập hàng ngày.
1. What is the Feynman technique? The Feynman technique is a simple but incredibly powerful learning method designed to help you understand complex ideas deeply by breaking them down into plain, everyday language. Named after physicist Richard Feynman, who is known for his ability to explain complicated scientific concepts in a clear and relatable way, this method is based on a key principle: if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. At its core, the Feynman technique shifts the focus from passive learning, such as reading, highlighting, or rewatching lectures, to active learning, where you're required to engage with the material, organize your thoughts, and explain them clearly. Instead of just memorizing facts or copying definitions, you're challenged to rephrase and teach the concept using your own words, as if you're trying to explain it to a complete beginner or even a child. This process reveals whether you truly understand a topic or are just familiar with the surface-level information. When you're forced to simplify what you've learned, you quickly uncover the gaps in your understanding, and that's where real learning happens. The Feynman technique isn't just about remembering information, it's about being able to work with it, explain it, and apply it in different situations. The beauty of this method lies in its versatility. Whether you're studying for a biology exam, trying to understand a historical event, or learning a new theory in economics, the Feynman technique can help you go from "I've heard of this" to "I fully understand this." It's not about being smart, it's about learning smart. 2. The 4 steps of the Feynman technique. A practical breakdown. The Feynman technique is built around 4 clear and practical steps that help you turn passive knowledge into deep understanding. Each step is designed to make you interact with the information actively, forcing your brain to process, question, and rephrase it in your own words. Here's how each step works in detail. Step 1. Choose a concept you want to learn. Start by picking a topic you're currently studying or struggling with. It can be anything, from a scientific theory, a grammar rule, a math formula, to a historical event. Write the topic at the top of a blank page or open a digital note with a clear title, such as photosynthesis or supply and demand. This first step gives you a clear focus and sets the stage for active engagement. Step 2. Explain the concept as if you're teaching it to a 10-year-old. Now imagine that you need to explain this topic to someone with no background knowledge at all, a child, a friend outside your field, or even your past self. The goal is to use the simplest language possible, avoiding jargon, memorized definitions, or technical terms. If you must use complex words, make sure to define them clearly. For example, don't just write photosynthesis is the process by which plants convert light energy into chemical energy. Instead say, plants take sunlight, water, and air and turn it into food they can use to grow. The simpler your explanation, the better you understand the concept. As you write, include simple definitions, clear examples, analogies that relate the idea to everyday life. This step forces you to think through the material deeply and uncover areas that are still unclear or confusing. Step 3. Identify knowledge gaps and go back to your source material. While writing your explanation, you'll likely get stuck or realize that you're not 100% sure how something works. That's a good thing. It shows you exactly where your understanding breaks down. Highlight or circle those parts and then return to your textbook, class notes, or reliable resources to review them. This step transforms mistakes and confusion into powerful learning moments. The goal isn't perfection on the first try, it's iteration. You may need to go through steps 2 and 3 more than once to truly master a topic. Step 4. Simplify, organize, and retell the concept clearly. After filling in your knowledge gaps, rewrite your explanation in a clearer, more concise, and more organized format. This is the final version, the version you could confidently teach to someone else. Make sure your explanation has a logical flow and connects all the key ideas in a way that's easy to follow. You can even teach it out loud to a friend, record yourself explaining it, or pretend you're standing in front of a class. If you still stumble during the explanation, go back and revise again. Teaching is the ultimate test of mastery. 3. Why is the Feynman Technique so effective? The Feynman Technique is effective because it transforms how we interact with knowledge. Instead of relying on passive learning strategies, like rereading, highlighting, or memorizing definitions, it shifts the focus to active engagement, where the learner must truly process and understand the material in order to explain it clearly. This method not only strengthens memory but also deepens comprehension, making it one of the most powerful tools for long-term learning. One key reason for its effectiveness is that it forces you to confront what you don't know. When you try to explain a concept in your own words, you quickly realize which parts you understand and which parts are still confusing. Unlike traditional studying, where you might feel confident simply because the material looks familiar, the Feynman Technique actively reveals knowledge gaps. This awareness allows you to focus your review where it matters most, making your study time more efficient. Another reason the technique works so well is because it encourages elaboration and simplification, 2 core principles in cognitive science. By simplifying complex ideas, you're not just repeating information, you're restructuring it in your brain in a way that's easier to recall later. This improves both short-term understanding and long-term retention. When you can explain a concept without relying on notes or jargon, that knowledge becomes more flexible. You can apply it in new contexts, link it to other topics, and adapt it to solve problems. In addition, the technique promotes active recall, which is one of the most effective ways to strengthen memory. Each time you try to explain something from memory, you're reinforcing neural pathways associated with that knowledge. Combine that with spaced repetition or review over time, and the information becomes much harder to forget. The Feynman Technique also builds critical thinking and communication skills. The process of teaching a concept requires you to not only understand it, but to organize it logically and communicate it clearly. These are valuable skills not just in academic settings, but in everyday life and professional environments. In short, the Feynman Technique is effective because it transforms you from a passive learner into an active thinker. It helps you build true mastery of a subject, not just the ability to recite it, but the ability to explain, apply, and build upon it. That's why it's often referred to as the learning strategy of geniuses, and why anyone can use it to learn faster and better. 4. How to apply the Feynman Technique in daily study life. The Feynman Technique can become a powerful part of your daily study routine when applied consistently and intentionally. Instead of relying on passive methods like rereading or highlighting, this approach encourages you to actively engage with the material. After each study session, take a few minutes to write down everything you've just learned in your own words, as if you were teaching it to someone with no prior knowledge. like a younger sibling or a classmate unfamiliar with the topic. This step helps solidify your understanding and immediately reveals any areas where your knowledge is unclear or incomplete. Rather than copying definitions or textbook language, try to use simple, natural language and provide your own examples. The process of transforming complex ideas into plain speech forces your brain to work harder, leading to deeper understanding. Another practical way to apply this technique is by turning your study notes into mini lessons. For every topic you review, write a script as if you're explaining it to a beginner. Structure your explanation clearly, include analogies or comparisons, and try to anticipate potential questions someone might ask. You can even take it a step further by practicing these explanations out loud. Teaching the concept verbally, not just thinking through it, helps reinforce clarity and confidence. If you find yourself stumbling over a part of the explanation or reverting to complex terms you don't fully understand, that's a signal to revisit and refine that area. Creating a dedicated Feynman notebook or digital template can help you stay consistent. You might divide each page into sections such as topic name, explanation in your own words, related examples, unclear points or questions, and a final simplified summary. This format ensures you go through every step thoroughly and allows you to track your improvement over time. You can also incorporate this into your weekly review sessions, reread your previous explanations and attempt to explain the same concept again, checking whether your understanding has deepened or stayed the same. The Feynman technique also works well alongside other study strategies like spaced repetition. After creating your simplified explanations, revisit them periodically, maybe after 1 day, 3 days, a week, to refresh your memory. This layered review process strengthens the neural connections in your brain and supports long-term retention. During exam preparation, use the Feynman technique to test yourself. Pick a topic from your syllabus and attempt to explain it out loud or in writing, without looking at your notes. If you can teach it clearly and confidently, you're likely ready. If not, you now know exactly where to focus your review efforts. Overall, integrating the Feynman technique into your daily routine doesn't require a drastic change in how you study. It just asks you to take an extra step. Don't just absorb information, engage with it, question it, explain it. Over time, this method helps you become not only a more effective learner, but also a better communicator, thinker, and problem solver.